What's up guys, welcome back to another reaction series, and today we're going to switch geographical location a little bit. Alright, last time we kind of checked out our neighbor. This round we want to check out a Taiwanese YouTuber because some audience sent this to me. He said I look like him.
Without the specs.
Then I think it's because of how he explains his terminologies of buildings around apartments in Taiwan. We'll check out the difference later, but yeah, enjoy. So by the way, his name is Ted.
好，各位朋友，大家好，欢迎收看商务相商务，我是 Ted。我们今天商务说说，就是要带大家看墨线图跟空屋。今天讲这个其实非常重要，因为如果你是买成屋的话，你在空屋里面什么都看得到。可是我们常讲买预售屋的时候，就是在看图面。
So he's talking about sub-sales versus new projects. So if you're buying new projects, what you have is only drawings. So unlike ready-built buildings, you get to go and see whatever you want. So the certainty for sub-sales is always better.
看到什么东西是图面不会有的，你想要看什么东西要另外去要的，好不好？那我们今天就开始啦。我们是用 A2 的这个格局。
So these are called simplified floor plans, where you see on brochures. Because if I were to put in all the technical items in the drawing, it's going to be a lot of lines. So when we do construction also, there will be overlaying of different elements. Like there's this thing called reflected ceiling plan, where I know how the lighting point is reflected. Because if you understand floor plans, it's cut at 900 to 1 meters. So anything above that line, you can't see. Anything under that line only you can see. So that's what we call a generic floor plan. And for brochure, they simplify even further for aesthetic purposes. And you see those 4 big chunks of things, right? Those are columns. Again, some technical things about drawings. If the platform is less than a meter, it's not solid black, it's going to be 2 lines. If it's cut, meaning like if it's a wall that is cut, then it's solid black line. That's how you read drawings. Then when you have drops, then you have the small little arrow thingy. Yeah, later I'll show you guys.
然后我边看边讲，进门这边就是一个玄关。好，玄关一进来的时候，你会发现它会告诉你这一块是做鞋柜的。可是呢，进门的不管是左边、前面、旁边，有一个地方一定是摆电箱和资讯箱，就弱电箱。
The DB box is huge. That's the DB box. Yeah, it looks clean.
在进来的时候，我们往上看，有没有？好，开始有管线了哈。然后再进来第一支梁，第一支梁这么大根，这个就是在讲这一支柱子，这个格局基本上没有问题，但是它有这一支梁。我现在在位置是 A2 的5楼，待会我们会去看同样 A2 的23楼，大家就可以看到梁差多少。
What he's talking about is beams. So whenever you see columns to columns, it's a joint for the beam, because beam ultimately will need to transfer the load to the column, right? And what you can see here, right, this is 5th floor, and he's trying to say that at level 23, the beams are smaller. Yeah, because at level 23, the loads is way lower than when you are at 5th floor. So that actually takes up, build up within your unit itself. But this kind of construction method is not common in Malaysia because we use a lot of core materials. The lift core carries certain load, lateral loads as well for the building. Also, we have all our walls as structural elements. Our walls now are all cast in situ, but it's structural loading walls. So you have walls now that's full concrete. You cannot hack, you cannot puncture, like even nail, right? The nail will bangkok on. So that's why even our floors are thinner, because it's built in a more efficient manner. Good and bad lah. So you can feel the vibration whenever your neighbors come out from the lift or whatsoever, because it's so thin. But then in terms of ceiling height, we have more. But that is a problem between our build methodology. We cannot alter floor plan. We cannot hack off walls. But for them, they can. Because the weight of the building is carried by the 4 columns. But then everything else are just for space partition. Malaysia cannot know. If you hack out the wall, the building might collapse one. But only for older buildings, like those walk-up apartments back then, those have beams and columns in the normal apartments. The walls are just for partition one. So it's always good to get structural engineers approval also for old buildings if you want to do hacking.
你们在买房子的时候，上面不会显示门口机在哪里？为什么你要很在意门口机在哪里？因为如果门口机就在你的门旁边的时候，你的鞋柜要做的时候，是不是不能做满排？你可能只能做上柜和下柜，中间要留门口机。
That is a very legit point. He was saying that you don't see the smart items. It's either at the entrance or wherever. Yeah, so that affects your cabinet's location and design.
玄关就是可以去满足，比如说衣帽间、鞋柜，就比较不容易因为门口机而要改变你的位置。
Also in country with seasons, they require more things, more storage as well. Like the amount of shoes they have is 4 seasons, bed sheets. That's why, so what he was saying, that 玄关 is the foyer. Sometimes when we think Malaysia, a lot of apartments don't have foyer already. Straight away go in, it's like unit already. Then don't even have a place to put a shoe.
除了看得到梁很大只以外，还会有看到很多的管线，这个是消防哦，这是不能拆的东西。
So those are the fire fighting pipes. So those are the sprinklers. So usually in Malaysia, what we have, it's all concealed nicely at the unit, like the one in the oak that we just went. Yeah, so it's very nicely concealed. So this one is straight away exposed, and the thing is you cannot take it out for safety purposes. So it's a regulation thing. I don't know why they can put it like all white. Like in Malaysia, there are certain places, especially the basement, you need to have tags of red because you need to differentiate between the cold water pipe. You need to tell this is a firefighting piping, and you need to know
一定会有做设计的跟你讲说这些东西可以裁短，然后可以往上，好像也没有什么真的法规说一定不行。这个客厅其实是很方正，格局很大，很漂亮。进来的时候你可以往地板下看，因为这边空屋是看得到，但是如果是预售的话，你是看加配图，好像它这个就是80×80的地砖。你有时候看加配图的时候，它会画地砖的格子，那有些是60，有些是80，这个就大家就要自己问一下。
So they use a lot of centimeters. For us, we use a lot of mm, but for everything else, we use feet and square feet, which is really messed up. But one thing stands out, you look at the beam behind, right? Those might be sensors.
买空屋的时候啊，天花板就是直接到顶，所以你会看到它有一些放电灯的地方，就是它原本可以拉电线出来的地方。
You look at the pipings at the right hand side. Yeah, so when you have internal bedrooms, right, you have aircon unit, there needs to be pipings. So usually where do they lay? They need to go through the corridor outside the apartment, then just to get to the facade. That's why you have things like that. And when you puncture through structural beams, it's either you do it during or you do it after. So if you do it before, when you have good planning, so you can puncture the hole first, then you have pipings to go through that tidy. But sometimes in Malaysia, we need to do the drilling afterwards.
第二支很明显的梁在，看到为什么这边有一支梁？照理说有梁都是因为有大的柱子中间会要有梁哦，但不过大家不用担心，你买小坪数的房子比较不会出现这种，这个就突然来一根梁哦，这2根梁。
When the surface area of your unit is too big, then what is required for the concrete to not sag? You need a secondary support beam. So one is to hold the whole floor, then the other one is to just let the center portion of the floor slab to have support. So sometimes this again is not indicated in the building. So if you think about it, why, as we mentioned before, our buildings, right, usually are dictated by how the layout of the car park is. Because when we design car parks, it's all about efficiency. It's either 2 car parks or 3 car parks. Then you have the structural members. Then every time when we go up to the elevated car park already, then we go up to the facility deck. That's where we break. So that's why we talk about the structural break system, right? So there needs to have a separation between the typologies and structural arrangement of the columns and beams for the residential tower against the car park structure. Because if you use the same grid lines, the building is going to look very, very boring. But to save cost, some developer just jump out holding the same one and don't need to redesign. Then your layout of the floor plate will be very, very boring and weird. So this is what they meant. So in Malaysia, again, it's very, very different. So we have the structure. That's why we have the buildings like J2 Pion. The arrangement of the tower is like that. But when you reach the facility deck, why nothing one? So always the slab of the facility that becomes the crucial element for structural engineers. That is where okay, I need to take all this load from the two towers, then to redistribute again the load and to evenly put out to the columns below.
好，再过来看，这里也有一只哦，这都是小梁啦。
He said this is small If it's on our unit, I'm gonna, wow! A great structural engineer is supposed to work with the architect in order to coordinate the location of these things. It's best if it's in between spaces. Like let's say it's a transition space from the kitchen to the rooms or whatsoever, so it's not as sticky. Then I can camouflage it using my plaster ceiling or whatsoever. But then you see, right, there's a distance between the wall and the beam. But if you extend it out, then it will affect the layout of the kitchen or the bedroom. So it's best that usually that we have a column or beam, then we have the wall. Then it's nicely separate out, then it camouflages, then you don't notice there's a... But you look at this thing. If it's me, I will make a lot of noise already. But to him, it's like what he said, like, oh, people will easily forget this kind of beams. So that's the difference. Like, when you have all the norm of construction there is like that, people got no other choice, but then like, oh, he's like that one ma. So Malaysia buildings not necessarily bad man.
它有没有违反图面？没有，因为它会跟你说，哦，我给你看的这个叫做墨线图，叫做加配图，不是什么结构图，还是蓝晒图，还是水电施工图。现在看到的所有管线都是合理的哦。
We look into the amount of pipings. Right? In Malaysia, we can conceal everything. First of all, it's easier for the person who builds. So you won't, why like that one? So ugly one. People who is building homes for their own self, I would prefer it exposed. So I know what is inside. Then when I do renovation, because they can tear down walls, so they can basically just do anything they want. But for our Malaysia one, the max you can do is what? Change the color of your sofa only.
我会不会讲的这个太了？让别人都不用做生意了，对不对？
I think we share the same concern. Sometimes we expose too many things of what developers do and what contractors do, right? Sometimes is it empowering home buyers versus spoiling the secrets, spilling the beans, right, for the industry players. I don't know, but to me, sometimes I think like with better knowledge, then it will improve the industry better. Yes, it's more difficult to impress now.
我们看到的这个窗户都是一样大的，它们都是非常大片的窗户。你可以看到外面的这一块就是雨遮。
You can check it out on floor plans. It tells you the width. It doesn't tell you the depth. So sometimes you say, wow, very big, right? But we know like that.
那现在2018年1月1号之后的建造嘞，雨遮不计平不计价。
So what he's saying right now, right? In Taiwan, built-up calculation is very different. Like when we say 750 square feet for our unit, the unit built up is 750 square feet. But for them, when they say like if it's 1,000 square feet, that includes the common facility area divided among all residents of the building, including balcony, including aircon latch. That's their built up. So when you ask about buildings in Taiwan, right? What's your built up? What's net or gross? Or including facilities or whatsoever. So that's why we are very spoiled. Yeah, so their common facilities area are divided in calculation and you need to pay for it. When it's a covered area, so let's say if your balcony it's non-covered, it's calculated as half. So let's say if my balcony, it's like maybe 50 square feet, right? Oh, 25 square feet is included in the build-up. But if it's fully shaded by another balcony above, it's fully calculated and you need to pay full for it.
通常浴室会有管道间，但是它这个浴室的管道间应该是安排在外面。待会我们可以去后阳台看一下。通常浴室里面会有一个管道间，会像一个这样子一个叉叉，这我们上集也有讲过。
So when he said that's the piping stack means when you have an apartment, usually all bathrooms are stacked vertically. Why? Because the piping is just way more efficient. Bathrooms, you have the water pipes, you have the ventilation pipes. You have grey water pipe, which is your shit and all need to go through the sewerage lah. Then within that pipe itself, they need to have open air one, so it connects right up to the top. So inside this is where you stack all your floor trap also whatsoever. So there will be a designated area where the pipings are just all stacked together. And in Malaysia, like I think like them also, they will conceal it very nicely in the walls also, and it's fully tiled out that you don't see. That's why also in apartments, right, on the mornings, a lot of water sound. All from your neighbors 啦。
主卧可以看到种这一只梁，所以很多人会说床不能摆在这一边，必须摆在那一面。
So he's saying that we share the same feng shui lah. Do not sleep under a structural member. That's why sometimes you think, right, why our layouts all look the same? Because of all these strict rules. So we have all these strict rules on top of government authority rules, on top of preferences, all going to look the same.
好，那再来看到这边又有一只梁，这个是我们的墨线图上面也没有的，当然加配图上也不会有，墨线图只有柱没有梁，好吗？好，这是另外一间卧室哈，那另外一间卧室就是从刚刚主卧接过来的这一面。
You think about it, right? The dimension of the beam is as wide as the door. The door, right, is 900. The beam is 900. It's huge, leh.
这一间房间就有一个超大梁，然后呢还有另外一边也有一个梁，但是它都不会在你的墨线图里面。
You imagine, right, you see the pipes above the ceiling right now. I think those are worse than beams, you know. We can wallpaper it like what we usually do, right? But this one is insane, man.
来，我跟你说，之前节目有讲哈，越低楼层的梁会越大只。我们先量一下这边的梁大概多粗多深哦。其实大概74公分哈。
It's a toilet size door. 750 mm. It's a huge leh. It's as huge as our door, and you have several of them.
它的高嘞。这是105公分，但我这一支超过10公分，所以这支柱从上到下是有95公分。
Meaning from ceiling, right? From ceiling, your ceiling, right? It's 90 cm depth. It's again putting a door. Like you put a door vertically like that. That's the depth of the beam. So this kind of topologies we see a lot in commercial buildings because it's usually in areas where, then these are the areas where I put in the partition. So it looks better. Because I wouldn't want a meeting room, then suddenly there's one solid beam. They are designing it like a feature there, you know.
厨房可以看到这边是有管道间的，就是说那个角落，电器柜的旁边这边是管道间。然后你们看到厨房通常都会做比较低一点，因为上面要做短线，然后还有一些排气的。
So we also talked about this. There's always a down drop from the ceiling area, like we see all the studio units. So it's because like your floor traps need to flow somewhere. There needs to be an elbow that comes out from the above unit, so it needs somewhere to flow to lah. That's why it's always lower. For certain apartments, they will be sharing the gas, so there needs to have a stack of vertical element connection also.
这是瓦斯管哦，这个之前我们在旧式要看房里面的不动产小教室有讲，这个就是瓦斯管，这个是单层排气的。那单层排气的之前都讲过，厨房的排气，其他的不同的房间的排气。
You see all their pipings all is at one stack up. So in Malaysia, we see all those are concealed within the structural members. Their wall treatments, their facade wall treatments are different. We are still very spray painty. Yeah, they are like extra materials laid on top. I guess that's why you look into like Taipei, the buildings looks way older. Because it needs to be more sustainable in that way lah. Because paint, right? No need 5 years lah. Now it looks like makeup
对面那个样子，那一颗一颗的，每一颗圆圆都是排气。有看到那个是排水，一个圆圈洞洞的，那个是阳台的排水。
So when it's rain, right, then suddenly you have water show. In Malaysia, our floor traps are connected into the internal part.
粪管是橘色的，我们看到那个水管都是灰色嘛，长得跟水管差不多一样。
So that's how they label sewage. With bright orange.
那我们现在到一模一样的格局的23楼哈，大家可以看到，它就是4到16楼会是一个，17到26楼会是一个。
So how they do is they stagger the structural elements. It's not your size of your column will automatically just shrink like that. So what they do is they stagger, like this zone, we will have this size. Then when they have this new zone, which is the upper floor, then there will be a smaller dimension for your structural members.
主要的差别就是它17楼以上是做开放式厨房，但是它的第一楼层4到16楼是做封闭式厨房，弱电箱一样的位置。好，你看这就有差了。这一支刚刚量是差不多95公分，那我这边量一下，3.2米，这边2.5米，这边这一支就剩70公分。
So 95 cm. Then here is only 70. And you can see that it's way smaller already.
不过它这个开放式厨房设计也不错，为什么不错？因为这个中岛放在外面，这边可以做轻食，然后蒸烤炉啊，反正电器柜在这边，但是它这边还是有做一个门，你可以把这个做大菜，就是瓦斯炉在里面隔起来，所以你的油烟还是不会跑到室内，但是你又有室内的中岛厨房。当然你说这一面可不可以打掉？这面也可以打掉，你可以做超大的厨房。
So because of their structural arrangement, the walls can be taken out. Provided, I think the only thing they need to be a little bit more careful is whether are there electrical elements inside, or you have the kitchen wall where everything is attached to it. Then you cannot 啦。
大家记得很多东西是我们平常看不到的，你真的要花那么多钱的时候，真的只有靠自己多做功课，不然买预售只有看图面，没有看到屋子，你最后盖完说，这边怎么多一支梁，这边怎么多一个管线，怎么多一支那么大支、这么粗的水管，就是你看加配图、看平面图不知道的事情。你说卖预售屋的他会不会给你那么完整的图？我不知道，我相信你们跟销售人员要可能是可以问得到，但是我也不能说100%他们有义务要提供，这个我不确定。
So he is saying, right, the main thing when you buy new properties on drawings, you have very limited information. And there's no obligation for developers or salesperson to give you the required technical drawings. Because I think, like being a developer myself before, if I were to show you the drawing, sometimes on site, there might be certain issues that we need to change. And suddenly, because I give you that drawing, it becomes that legal obligation for me to build as the drawing I provided to you. So why do I want to make my life so miserable? Therefore, the simple answer is no. Well, I think by basic understanding, the channel sentiments are the same. We generally try to bridge the information gap and knowledge for first-time home buyers. I think that's great. The main message for the video is what you don't see when you buy a new building, because they are a little bit more tedious in terms of build up that they get. Then we also see the difference between structural arrangements of buildings. Theirs is insane. So I'm thinking, like, does it make sense that for the benefit of having flexibility for the layout, I'd rather have a structural member in my room? And imagine if you don't have the money for ID. You have to live with that. If you are getting a new property, so I will always encourage you to visit at least 20 different properties of different location, different types, just to not fall prey into sales pitches. Right, and I guess that's all for today. If you guys have any more suggestions, do leave the comment down below. We will go check them out. So if you have any topics that you want to listen to me speak about, do comment below. And I think that's all for today. A pretty straightforward one. See you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching. Ciao.